Hello everybody, Crazy Crab in the house, and today gonna rank and talk about the DCEU. And I grew up as a Batman fan. I watched Michael Keaton's Batman, I watched Christopher Reeve's Superman, so I was much more attracted to the DCEU than the MCU. Having said that though, the DCEU is not exactly perfect, and in fact it's a total mess. And I think they need to go ahead and pretty much start the freak over because they did a poor job of building that universe. It's not that there's nothing to like about it, but due to impatience, this thing was just totally rushed and super stupid at times. But I still tried like hell to be a fan and to enjoy it and to get into the universe. And I've seen all 7 films, so I decided to go ahead and rank them and talk about them. So let's start at the bottom of the barrel with number 7. Number 7 is going to be what should have been up near the top, but like I said, impatience, greed, and simple incompetence caused this film to be completely botched, okay? To try to make this movie before you've developed anything other than Superman's origin story was idiotic. They had so many things that they tried to do in this movie because nothing else was prepared, nothing else was built up. So it's like 3 or 4 films crammed into one, and it's a total mess. Without a standalone Batman movie, they tried to throw in his origin story so we can get some background on his character. We don't get much because there's really not time. So if you're not already knowledgeable about Batman and Alfred and all that, then you're screwed, okay? Because it's shoved in there along with Superman's continuation, because there was no Man of Steel 2, so they tried to continue his story. How's he doing with Lois Lane? Lois Lane has nothing important to do in this movie. She just has some pointless scenes throughout, and it's dumb. There's, I guess, a main story where Batman and Superman are going to fight for some reason, so they had to find a reason for that instead of developing one over the course of a few films and build it up to an epic battle between maybe 2 former friends, like an Obi-Wan Anakin thing. You know, of course, one of them maybe doesn't have to go full evil, but, you know, build it up so it has some weight. Not to say that there was no reason for them to fight, because they did come up with something. The opening scene was cool, and it did give some kind of explanation to why Batman's angry at Superman, and also it gave an explanation to the ridiculous amount of death and destruction at the end of Man of Steel. So it started out okay, but yeah, it just wasn't good. It just went downhill. And you know, Ben Affleck as Batman is good, but the Lex Luthor portrayal by Jesse Eisenberg, while I don't mind, you know, bringing a different interpretation to characters, when it's like night and day, nothing close to any Lex Luthor I've ever seen. It's not that ice cold calculating villain that, you know, is Lex Luthor. Instead, it's some wild, unorthodox, stuck-up genius type. You know, the same basic dude that was in the Facebook movie. And when I say that, I mean it was the same character. The same character as the Facebook guy, if you've seen that movie, except here maybe he's a little more evil, okay? So, you know, I didn't hate him as a villain. I kind of liked him, but not as Lex Luthor. He should have been someone else. You know, and then they introduced all the DCEU characters because they're rushing as fast as they can because they want to put out Justice League, and they put them in an email. Yes, in an email. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. So, I'm sorry. Last on the list, I have to put Batman v Superman. So let's move on. Number 6, unfortunately, and I'm sad to say it, but Shazam is the most recent DCU film, and it is one of the only films I know of that, like, everyone I know loves it, except my dumbass cannot stand it. I cannot get past the ridiculousness of some of these scenes. I cannot believe this is supposed to be in the same universe as Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, which I just talked about. Yes, it sucks. It's not just because it's lighthearted and funny. I knew it was going to be lighthearted and funny, but it's so out there with the jokes during what should be intense moments. There's no fear or sense of danger, despite the fact that they try to put in a serious villain and act like lives are on the line. You know, there's really no sense of danger. So I would have preferred it if they just kept it light and kept it a comedy. Shazam's got his superpowers, and you know, he plays around with his brother, but nothing serious happens. I'd have preferred that. Like, you know, I gotta come up with some storyline, but maybe nothing where lives are on the line. That would have been even better for me, because this was just silly. I would have preferred just a straight up comedy, because they couldn't just leave the comedy and silliness alone during the appropriate moments. It carried over into all the action scenes, making them unbelievable. Children cracking jokes, laughing while giant monsters are trying to kill them. And at the end, when they all become superheroes, it was just so bad. I couldn't do it. I don't want to go on and on about it. I know everyone loves this film. People say, hey, DCEU back on track with Shazam. Maybe, but this film was just not my cup of tea, all due respect. You know, I was saying it's better than Batman v Superman because BVS pretty much destroyed the universe before the universe even got going. So to me, BVS is just like, it's like the last Jedi of the DCU. Shazam maybe is more like the Attack of the Clones of the DCU. You know, like, it's just not good to me. To me, I know other people are not going to make that comparison. This is just my take on it. I didn't like it. And it's painful to watch, but it doesn't necessarily destroy the franchise. You know, it's not that bad. There were some good jokes in it, but I just didn't enjoy it. Other than those few funny jokes, the opening scene was cool, and that was pretty much it. So, interestingly, both BVS and Shazam, the first 5 minutes I was feeling it. After that, no. So, moving on. Number 5, I'm going to go with Justice League. But I will say from Justice League, from number 5 up are movies that I enjoyed to some extent. Movies I don't hate. And this was an easy watch. It was fun. I didn't hate it. There was also way too much humor for me in the final battles. They couldn't stop cracking jokes and it got distracting. But having said that, there were also a few times where it was legitimately hilarious. I mean, much more so than Shazam even. I thought The Flash was hilarious. I laughed harder than I ever did in any of the other DCEU movies. The characters are all cool. I loved meeting everyone. You know, Aquaman is such a cool dude. You know, I'd like to just go hang out, just go have a beer with him. And I don't even drink beer. So that's what I feel about Aquaman in this movie especially. Wonder Woman, awesome. Now, she was in BVS too, but we hadn't seen her fully developed yet in her own movie, so didn't really know much about her. But now I've come to really like her after she had her own movie. Again, if they would have developed the characters individually first, would have been to their benefit. You know, maybe when I watched Batman v Superman, I would have, you know, like awesome, been much more excited to see Wonder Woman because I already knew I liked her. But whatever. Here, she really helps Justice League be a better film. The Superman revival scene was pretty sick, I thought. In other words, I liked it. I thought it was really cool. In fact, overall, I'm going to say I like Justice League a lot more than most people do. That said, all that said, this movie was also rushed. It was also a total mess, and it was nowhere near as good as it should have been. This film should have been an epic movie that came out after all the main characters had their own movies. Could have been some pending global disaster that was building throughout the other films, something that was building up that we knew would come to a head, and then bam, Justice League would be this film where all the superheroes have to come together and save the freaking world. Something like that, instead of the Boxes and Steppenwolf, who I did not think was a very good villain. I mean, he was okay, but you got to counter all these great superheroes, okay, with something serious. The Shazam villain was nothing special either, but he was going up against Kid Shazam, so he didn't have to be anything special. But for Justice League, you better have a super freaking villain, top notch, built up properly. But in this movie, we only see one family that appears to be in danger. I mean, I know there's others, but they don't show them. This movie is just like, you could tell it's totally rushed. You could tell it was a mess behind the scenes, which it was. It was poorly done, poorly written, despite the fact that I enjoyed the movie. And I'm not saying it was a hard thing to watch or really bad. It was an easy watch. It flowed okay from the perspective of entertainment. I mean, nothing was like, oh gosh, that's horrible. No, it wasn't like that. It was okay, but it should have been so much better than okay. Huge potential thrown away, and it's a shame. On its own merit, it was fine, but like I said, Justice League should have been better than fine. It should have been epic. You know, I'd give up the 2 or 3 laugh out loud moments for a better Justice League moment that was built up, warranted, and awesome. But right now, it's too late for that. Number 4 is going to surprise people that it's this low, and that's Aquaman. I did not like this as much as everyone else. I had high expectations after watching the reviews, and I love James Wan, but I went to watch this in theaters. I was going to do a review of it, but I just had some second thoughts. I thought maybe I need to watch this again, and I just never really got around to watching it again. It wasn't that I didn't want to disagree with everyone, but I didn't want to put out an official review and then come later to realize, oh, actually, it was actually pretty good. It's actually not that bad. So, eventually I see it again, and it's a little bit better, but honestly, I just wasn't that big of a fan. There's lots of dialogue problems. I didn't think it was very good. There's exposition that they talk about, like to explain to us what's going on, and sometimes it could be done smoothly. In this film, I feel it's just a little bit fake. Like they're obviously talking to us. I don't like that when that happens. The CGI is beautiful, but it's also complex, dense, and very busy, and sometimes it's a little much for me, but that's just an opinion thing. That's just my taste. It's not that it's bad, it's just a little too much sometimes, and sometimes a little video game-ish to me. And again, this is a tough movie to make. Underwater, Kingdom, there has to be a lot of CGI. It's a tough movie to make, so I can understand that, but I still got to talk about just how I felt watching it. Again, the villain, DCEU really has problems with villains, even though they had potential here with Black Manta. That was an interesting storyline. He could have been a great villain, but instead they used him as kind of a secondary storyline that just wrapped up mid-film, and it was kind of weird. It was kind of off. Like, what's that whole deal there? Because you're trying to follow one story, but then there's another story going on. It all becomes kind of clear, but there were definitely moments where I thought it was just a little convoluted. But, I mean, I'm not saying this movie's bad and that I didn't enjoy it, because I did enjoy it. Nicole Kidman, I love seeing her. She was really good in it. Jason Momoa, really like. I love Aquaman. I think that's what really brings this movie up, because he's just awesome. Love to hang out with the dude. Dude's just laid back. Dude's just cool, funny, really cool to watch. Just loved him when he was on screen doing his thing. Really great performance. Sometimes it's just too many one-liners. I don't know. I'm just not big for the one-liners. A couple of them were cool, but he got the electric guitar underneath. He makes the one-liner. I don't know. I don't know. Something about it, just a little cheesiness. I don't know. It's not because of superhero. I just don't know why the movie didn't speak to me as loudly as it spoke to other people. And I also didn't think it was very funny, even though it was trying to be. Quite often, I didn't think this was funny. I thought even Justice League was more funny. Shazam was funnier, but of course Shazam was supposed to be basically a comedy. But I liked it, but I didn't love it, and it's in at number 4. Number 3 is going to surprise people that it's this high, and I'll openly admit this is not a great movie, but I personally enjoyed it because I love the characters. The problem with it is it's like barely a movie. There's not really, a storyline, or there's a storyline, but I don't know if the scenes they work together and build a plot and develop a character to come to an end where, arcs and all that. All that's pretty much out the window for Suicide Squad. But I still enjoy the movie. I just enjoy the movie. You know what I mean? I enjoy watching it. I enjoy it being on in front of me because I love Harley Quinn. She is freaking awesome. I love her. I love the actress who portrays her. And I love Will Smith in almost all his movies. He's really good as Deadshot. And that character, he gets some development. He gets some depth. I thought the Joker was really good. He wasn't in it very much. He probably should have been like the main villain, but I just assumed that he's going to get another film later where he get more screen time, so I could deal with that. The beginning of the movie was really cool, man. The music and stuff and the text intros to the characters was just completely off tone of anything. Again, tonally, we just went into left field with this one. But nevertheless, I mean, as a movie, I really enjoyed it. But no, I don't like when they don't keep some kind of a close to consistent tone between movies of the same universe. Just at least semi-close, but I guess that's not the plan here. Nevertheless, off tone, but I liked it. And I don't know if this was the right time to release this movie. It felt like, the DCU were just trying to compete with Marvel, and they're just trying to find what other movies are doing, what's popular. You can just tell there's not much passion behind it. They're really trying to just make money and make popular movies whatever they can do, however they're going to do it as quick as possible, and it causes problems. This was one movie that just, happened to be to my taste, and I enjoyed watching it. I thought that Amanda Waller is a pretty cool character, and I didn't really expect that from the trailers. But she seemed like she'd be a little boring, but she's not. She actually was cool. They were able to make a story that I thought wasn't the stupidest story in the world, where they're trying to convince Washington D.C. to let her build a task force with these superpower prisoners, and they're gonna help take down the big threats or whatever. I mean, it wasn't done very well, but on as a basic outline, I thought it was a cool idea. Obviously, at that time, Wonder Woman was around, Flash was around. It would have made more sense to get them to help. But there were also reasons that we can blame it on these bad guys if things go wrong. It was also a convoluted plot, but basically, I just liked the characters. I just liked watching them talk and deal with each other, because that's pretty much what it is. They're talking and they're doing things and they're beating people up and there's action, and it's not a very good movie. The editing is weird. The end wasn't great. Again, the villain was just not very good. I did not love this movie either. But it's all the way up at number 3 because I just enjoy it. I'm just entertained by it. You know what I mean? It just entertains me. The movie entertains me. I can watch the whole thing and I feel fine. I don't feel offended. I don't feel like I have to turn it off or anything like that. I enjoy watching it, but I do realize after watching it, I was like, that wasn't very good, kind of thing. So Suicide Squad number last two, if you've been paying attention, you know it's between Man of Steel and Wonder Woman. Both movies I enjoyed a lot. On any given day, I might feel like watching one over the other, but I'm going to go ahead and give number 2 to Man of Steel because of the simple fact that they never followed this up, and so it became like a wasted movie. Like The Force Awakens. I'm not saying The Force Awakens is good, but whatever good it had as a setup movie was wasted by its follow-up. And the same thing here. Man of Steel is an origin story, and it's been said that it's not a good Superman movie, but it's a good Alien Comes to Earth movie. Well, exactly. It's not a good Superman movie. I don't really care. It's a good Alien Comes to Earth movie, and then they're going to make good Superman movies. That was my thought, right? It's going to be followed up with a good Superman movie because it finishes with Clark Kent working at the Daily Planet. He's convinced the government that he's not a threat. Things wrapped up nicely for a sequel that never came. So we have Superman, and I'm thinking now we're going to get a Superman film, and it didn't happen. So they rushed into BVS, and they rushed into Justice League. The rest is pathetic history, and as its own film, I thought it was a really good origin story, and I actually really liked it. It starts out in Krypton with General Zod, Superman's dad. That whole opening was cool. The ship crashes into Smallville. Kevin Costner as Superman's Earth dad. Diane Lane as the mom. On point. It's a fun movie. I enjoyed it. No, the tornado scene where Superman doesn't do anything to help his dad, really. It's emotional. It's just a little far-fetched. Like, in the midst of a tornado, with all the chaos, I think the dad and Superman would realize, let's make a small exception here to the rule where he doesn't want Superman to use any of his powers in front of other people. Let's go ahead and see if you can go ahead and rescue me here. That would be nice. But no, it didn't work out that way, and it was tough to watch Superman stand by in a situation like that. They could have come up with a better situation there. But I did like the movie. I know a lot of people hate Man of Steel, and it's gotten less good over the years, mainly due to the follow-up crap, BVS, and to a less offensive degree, Justice League. And Henry Cavill was great, even though he didn't always have the best script and circumstances to work with. He is a really good Superman, in my opinion. I didn't love the final battle scenes of this movie. I think it was way over the top with the buildings getting destroyed all over the place. I mean, if you were alive during 9/11, you know what the destruction of buildings means and how serious that is. And, the death toll. And just for the sake of cool action, yeah, I get it. They're superheroes. They're going at it. Downtown area. There's going to be a lot of destruction. But it felt like they were just destroying building after building after building after building after building after building just cause it's just crazy, right? Just for the action. You start thinking about the death toll. You're like, oh my, how many humans are dead here? How many people how much bloodshed is there going to be out here? Like, I try to, suspend disbelief, and think, this is happening here. Well, at some point I'm like, I'm looking for my disbelief, because I don't want to believe this is happening. Like, I mean, I know, it's all part of action movies, that people die and stuff, but dang, I mean, this one was just insane. Like, buildings after buildings were just getting crushed and crumbling. And then they try to end the film on a happy note, like I said earlier, where Clark Kent has the job at the Daily Planet. I like the ending. I like how it wraps up like that, but at the same time, I'm still like thinking to myself, yeah, well, what about the thousands of dead people? What's going on down there? So it was just too out of control for me. That said, they did kind of justify that at the beginning of Batman v Superman, because we find out why Batman is so angry. But then at the end of BVS, the same freaking thing happens, and buildings get destroyed, and there's massive destruction, and it was even crazier, much crazier in that movie. And so it's like, okay, I think this is just this guy's style or something, whatever. But that said, I liked Man of Steel quite a bit. Number one, numero uno, is gonna be Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot nails the role. It did take me some time to get used to her, and I was a little bit worried about it when she was cast, but I eventually got to love her, and I think most people also did. And the idea to go back to World War I and have the film set during that time, I thought was pretty smart. You can't just have all the superheroes doing crazy things all at the same time without creating some plot holes and some problems. So by setting this during World War I, you don't have to worry about Superman or Batman and all this craziness. You can just stay focused on her, and that's what it does. And I thought the old World War I photo that she looks at in modern day at the beginning of the film, and if I'm not mistaken, in Batman v Superman during the email scene, I think she also looks at it, which we didn't know what the freak that was. And that's just it. I saw it. I was like, what is that? What's she looking at? That looks like a World War I photo with Wonder Woman up in there. And it's all explained now. We get the backstory. So I thought that was cool. She leaves her isolated island. She goes with this World War I soldier who crashed there. And by the way, I hated his line when he crashed, and she's like pointing to the other soldiers that were coming to attack. She's like, who are they? Or something like that. And he's like, oh, those are the bad guys. I'm the good guy. I'm like, oh my gosh. I hated that line. Like, who really says that in real life? And unless we're talking about movies, who talks about we're the bad guys and we're the good guys, or we're the good guys, they're the bad guys? Who says that? Especially during World War I in 1918 or whatever. People are not saying that, but I heard it in The Last Jedi too. I think Finn says it. He's like, at least you're helping out the good guys, not the bad guys. It's just a nitpick thing for me. I don't like that line. But there's other lines of dialogue in Wonder Woman that I'm not a fan of. But overall, it's a fun movie. She's really naive at first. She wants to save everyone. She doesn't really understand how war works, what needs to be done, but she grows, she learns, she makes mistakes, but at heart, she's a very good and caring individual. She's very likable. She's very funny. She's very witty, although not overly funny at this time. She's more so in modern day, like in Batman v Superman and in Justice League, which I find that makes sense because she's been around for 100 years hanging around humans. So her personality is developed, so it actually makes sense to me. But she still has some of that wit here. She's really, really likable, and she's really badass. And I know there's a lot of off screen. I've heard some talk about whether she's lesbian and all that stuff that's not really important to the story of superheroes trying to save lives, but that stuff is not really shoved in your face in the movie. There's going to be some feelings between her and Trevor. They don't go over and Trevor's the World War I guy, but they don't go over the top with it. It's not overly sexual, overly political, so that's appreciated. So overall, it's pretty much what you want to see in a superhero movie, and it's really good. I would not call it a perfect movie. The villain was not much. Again, they're not too good with villains, but the final fight was exciting. It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. Probably, as far as DCU goes, it's maybe the best we're going to get, but it wasn't great. I wouldn't call it a great final fight, but it was pretty good. It certainly wasn't terrible. And all in all, I think Wonder Woman has to be number one for me, so I'm putting it at number one, and I'm cautiously looking forward to the sequel. So thanks everyone for sticking through this ranking video. Let me know your ranking, what you think of these movies. I know mine is going to be a bit, I would say, controversial. I don't get enough views for anything to be controversial, but you know what I mean. I got Suicide Squad number 3. Even though I openly will admit Suicide Squad is not as good a movie as some of the movies below it, but my personal taste and how much I enjoy watching a movie and how satisfying it is to me and how much desire I have to watch it again, that's why it's ranked higher than that. I just love the characters, and Suicide Squad's at number 3. Shazam's probably a better movie. In fact, Shazam is a better movie than Suicide Squad. It is, but it's, for me personally, I can't do it. I just can't do Shazam. I'm sorry. It's just the truth. You just gotta you'd have to pay me to watch Shazam again. Suicide Squad, I'm down anytime. So that's why I have to rank them. Honestly, it's not based on how good the movie is from a structural standpoint and from I'm writing a college essay or something. It's from a standpoint of my just pure enjoyment as a fan sitting and watching it. And yeah, Suicide Squad, it's going to be much higher than Shazam. So have a great day, everyone. Subscribe if you haven't already. I want to get the sub count moving again. Okay, it's been stagnant for like 5 years. Okay, feels like it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it. So y'all have a great day. Share, like, subscribe. Bye.